Veterans in Transition is sponsored by HireVeteransFirst.com, Jelani Consulting, and Village Connector Community.
Welcome to Veterans in Transition, where we promote the veteran community. Each week, we travel around the region highlighting veteran-related news, issues, and events. In this episode of Veterans in Transition, we'll hear from VA Secretary Robert Willkie. Also, teaching from the experience of suicide, we'll hear a soldier's story. From the battlefield to the field of comedy, this wounded warrior shows us how he turned his pain into laughter. And we caught up with life coach Vernice Armour. But first, Secretary of Veterans Affairs Robert Willkie was the keynote speaker at the 30th Annual Veterans Brain Trust Forum held during the Congressional Black Caucus weekend. Secretary Willkie paid tribute to former veteran members of Congress and men of the Harlem 369 Infantry.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me present to you our Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Secretary Willkie.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Bishop. It's an honor. It is also an honor to share the podium with Colonel Brown, Sergeant Rangel, and Congressman Takano. It's nice to see you too, sir.
Good to see you.
I'm going to digress here and get off of the script, which I think this lofty position allows me to do. You can probably tell from my accent that I am from the Deep South. And in the Deep South, we are very much about remembrance and homecoming. And in my view, the Black Caucus is about remembrance and homecoming too. Mm-hmm. And in the last month and a half, we've lost two mighty warriors. The first you heard the American people talk a lot about was John McCain, a great man who was worthy of everything that was said about him. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about somebody that you all know, whose contribution to the people of the United States and to the warriors of America was no less important. He grew up in a place where he played baseball with Frank Robinson and Kurt Flood in high school. He could have been them, but he decided to go into the United States Marine Corps and then devote the rest of his life to serving the cause of veterans and peace. And it was probably the most American of experiences because he was known for being an anti-war activist, but he was also known for promoting the lives of soldiers. I had the unique opportunity to give this man bad news. Now, I was a 30-something staffer for the Senate Majority Leader, and I walked in on his office and he was 6'7" and looking down at me. And I had to tell him that the United States Senate had let him down. Now, that was not a very inviting prospect. But Congressman Rangel will know that what happened next was something that he experienced during his entire career with this gentleman. He reached out his hand. He said, "I thank you for the honor of conveying the Senate's message to me, and good luck to you." We miss a man of that stamp. The last thing I will say, we did share one other thing in common. We were both awarded the Defense Distinguished Public Service Medal, which is the highest civilian award of the department. He was much more deserving than I. So I want to say, on behalf of the Department of Veterans Affairs, I am honored to speak of Congressman Ronald Dellums. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the end of the war to end all wars. Unfortunately, it didn't end wars. But I have often said that there's no greatest generation. And the reason I say that, I'm the son of a gravely wounded combat soldier. My service is modest compared to my ancestors, compared to the men on this dais, compared to the men and women in the audience. There's no special generation for warriors. They all experience the same emotions: fear, sense of duty, the sense of duty to their fellow soldiers, and the same dreams to come home to a land of hope and a land that values not only their service but values their citizenship. And I think World War I is forgotten for the wrong reasons, because out of it came the beginnings of a movement that changed the country. But let me tell you a little bit about why I talk about it. The Bible that I used in my swearing in was carried into battle by my wife's grandfather. He was enlisted in the Army when he was 17. Now, he had never ventured beyond 3 or 4 counties in North and South Carolina, but by the time he was 18, he was marching up the Champs-Élysées into the bloody cauldron of the Meuse-Argonne, where in a matter of minutes, he saw thousands of young people die. In the back of that Bible was an inscription written in pencil that said, "Please return to my mother. These words mean a great deal to me." I don't know that there's a better expression of the prayer of a soldier than "return to my mother," because the words of this book mean so much to me. Another part of that battlefield was less heralded, and I'm glad the congressman is here because he has probably done more, along with General Powell, to remind Americans of the sacrifices of all Americans. I want to talk about 2 men. Needham Roberts, who hailed from Trenton, New Jersey. He served in the 369th Infantry, an outfit that you know very well. And he had a buddy from Albany, New York, named William Henry Johnson. They were commanded by a legend, James Reese Europe, who not only was a legend on the battlefield, but he was a legend in the culture of the United States of America. The 369th Infantry was in combat longer than any other American unit in the Great War. Roberts and Johnson fought alongside the French Army's 161st Division, and it was their commander who awarded these 2 men from New Jersey and New York the first Croix de Guerre. The first Croix de Guerre, the highest award the French Army could bestow to these young Americans. In hand-to-hand combat, they killed 141 German soldiers. A grenade wounded Private Roberts in the arm, and he still fought on. The Germans were terrified by the ferocity of that Harlem infantry unit, and the Kaiser himself was heard to mutter in his headquarters at Spa that hellfighters had descended upon the German army. You now know them as the Harlem Hellfighters. And I was proud to be in the East Room of the White House when President Obama awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor to those warrior Americans, an honor that should have been bestowed in 1918.
Born in Dominican Republic and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, Miguel Sierra shares his Courage is Contagious campaign, developed to promote suicide prevention, here in his own words.
When you're dealing with depression, you take things and you interpret them based on how you're feeling and your depression. I blame myself for what's going on, and I blame myself for hurting people. And I say, I can't take this pain no more. I can't take this guilt that I feel. And I just felt like the world would be a better place without me, you know what I mean? So I took those pills and then I went to sleep. Ever since then, you know what I'm saying, I've been kind of finding myself from within. if I didn't have the tools that I've learned in therapy and in counseling and throughout my years of doing suicide prevention, you know what I'm saying, then I wouldn't be able to be sitting here right now with you guys, you know what I mean? My name is Miguel Sierra. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I just retired, medically retired from the Army. I chose the Army because it's the best branch out of all services. I'm a 6-year X-ray behavioral health specialist. I also serve as a suicide prevention coordinator, resiliency training coordinator, and sexual assault victim advocate. I joined the Army a little bit late. I was 29, and before that, I used to work with juvenile sex offenders and runaway teenagers. So I was kind of drawn to the whole behavioral mental health field. When I transitioned into the military, it was kind of natural to do the same type of work. I always like helping people, and I feel like behavioral health is one of those things that we don't really think about until it actually hits the fan. I'm a firm believer in prevention over reaction, so I kind of wanted to help out. I was 29, so it was a little bit difficult. Going from an environment where I was pretty much in control all the time to being a private PV2 Sierra, but you adjust very quickly. I think my life experience helped me adjust. Even though it was difficult, I understood its purpose, and it helped me become a better leader. My passion is absolute life. My passion is this right here, which is starting my own business, doing workshops on suicide prevention, team building, resilience, sexual harassment prevention, and self-care, incorporating physical fitness and mental health. Founded Absolute Life last year, that's October, so we've been in business for a little under a year. So far, we've been doing a lot of community service work with for Belvoir, done a couple of suicide prevention classes for the folks over at the Arlington Cemetery, and just putting the word out there about mental health. We have a campaign right now going on called Courage is Contagious, where we encourage folks, especially men of color, to come out and talk about suicide, to come out and talk about mental health issues, about being depressed, about dealing with anxiety, because I think we have a pretty bad stigma out here in the society when it comes to defining strength, defining courage. And I think having the courage to step up and speak out, and speak up about your own personal struggles is very important, and it's liberating also. It's part of a healthy journey to recovery. I have a small, real low-key podcast right now called The Absolute Mixtape, in which we go out there and kind of put out the message and talk about, courage is contagious, anti-bullying campaign. We talk to kids. I go out to schools, community centers. I work with a bunch of people out there. I just go out there and help out as much as I can. Just my presence, just being there and kind of letting people know that it's okay to talk about mental health issues, that it's okay to talk about, suicide prevention and your personal struggles, and that you can overcome them. That people should not feel so alone dealing with stuff. So I try to go out there, man, pretty much every day and either post something online or go out into the community and help out as much as I can just by being there.
What does a wounded warrior and comedy have in common? A path toward healing.
So you are a comedian. You served in which branch of service?
I served in the United States Marine Corps.
Okay, how long did you do in the Marine Corps?
I did 7 years in the Marine Corps as a combat engineer. There's also not a lot of transfer over to the civilian world, because I dug mines out of the ground, and it's like I'm in DC looking for that job opening.
Well, I'm sure the potholes, there could be some kind of crossover with fixing potholes.
Maybe.
Anyway.
I did fill in the holes when I was done.
What happened to cause you to get out of the military? Tell us that story.
During my second deployment in Afghanistan in 2011, we were on a foot patrol, and we were ambushed, and I was shot twice, once in the stomach and once in the thigh. And after that, they medevaced me out of there, spent a little time in Germany, went to Bethesda, and after about a year and a half of recovering, they medically retired me.
You're retired now. What do you do in your civilian life?
In my civilian life, I go to school.
Okay.
I'm a journalism major, which I really like, and then stand-up comedy. After I got hurt and I had all these complications with surgeries and just over and over again, different things coming up, and I was in so much pain all the time, I just wanted to find something that I wouldn't have done had I not been hurt.
I don't want to step on your routine, but are you going to talk about your military working dog?
I haven't completely decided. I just found out I have more time than I knew I did. So yeah, I'm going to.
Can you tell us about like how you got your wonderful dog?
Well, my dog is from, he's a black lab, his name is Liberty. I got him from an organization called Puppies Behind Bars. When I first got back, I was struggling a lot with mobility issues, and the PTSD was much more unmanageable at the time. So I found this organization. They seemed amazing. I went up there and trained for 3 weeks with a bunch of dogs, ended up with this guy, and he's been great. It's been, I think, almost 4 years together.
Wow. Do you actually use him in your comedy routine?
I use him for inspiration.
Okay.
And he's also a good reset. And you know, like if I'm thinking, I can bend down, give him a kiss, and the audience is just like, "Oh, look, that's so funny." And I'm trying to remember. I don't want this to be about the dog, but I'll cheat. I'll use the cheat code that I've been given. I did a speech on service dogs for school, and I realized like I learned too much. So now when people tell me, they come up to me like, "Oh, he must smell my dog," I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know." Dogs have incredibly powerful noses. You know, I read the other day that dogs can actually smell cancer cells. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Yeah, but then, yeah, they look at me like I just gave him a death sentence. So I have to be like, no, calm down. I bet he just smells your dog's cancer. Just please relax. Oh, a dog with cancer. That's so sad. Just once, I swear to God, just once I want someone to come up to me like, "Oh, he must smell my drugs." Yeah, because that's someone I want to be friends with. That person can pet my cuddle buddy all day long. Where's Matt? Let's keep the drugs coming. You? From you, Stephanie? With your snake tattoos. Okay. Forgive me. So, like, when I first got him, he came with a black vest, and you can tell he's a very black dog. Not if you look right here, my man is aging like a sitting president in dog years. He is not enjoying hanging out with me all this time. So I got him this sweet American flag vest. I put like Iraq, Afghanistan, Purple Heart, thinking people wouldn't know exactly what was wrong with me, but they'd be like, "Okay, cool, I get it, wounded veteran." But instead they read it and they go, "Wounded veteran. This is the coolest day of my life." Which I don't get, like, what kind of do I look like where I drag a disabled dog around with me all day long to make myself feel better? People all the time, they come up to me like, "Hey bro, do you know what the dog did in Afghanistan?" I'm like, "No, it's not a thing." They don't just send them out in the world with jerks, talk about them on stage while they fall asleep at their feet. Does that make me a service human, you think? Is that what they think? I don't know. My favorite example, I was going out to dinner, and I go up to the hostess stand where we go table for two, and she's very cool about it. The hostess, sees the dog, she's nice. She goes, "Oh, table for 2.5," which initially I thought was adorable, but then the more I thought about it, I'm like, listen, even before we abolished slavery, we could have compromised and count them as 3/5. Yeah. Thank you. Where's Ty? I need someone to validate that this is not racist every time I tell that joke. You guys are like, my boss is here. I love it anyway for that reaction. They laugh in a different way in the South, and that makes me uncomfortable. Like, you guys liked it too much. That's the other problem. I'm educating people. No, but then she actually reads the vest, and she stands up very tall, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Table for 2 and 1 hero." I'm like, sweet, now he's a whole and he's better than me. That's what I wanted. One day you're just going to find videos of me on YouTube screaming at my dog about stolen valor. You know? Just like, "You take those patches off, you didn't earn them." And him just looking up at me like, "You dressed me, dummy." Plus, like, I like to educate people for service dogs, for veterans, but like, what am I supposed to say to this lady? Be like, "No, ma'am, actually, I'm the hero. This is just my stupid dog." Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks, everybody.
She was the first African-American female combat pilot in the U.S. Armed Forces. As a professional speaker and expert on creating breakthroughs in life, she goes by the name of Fly Girl.
I served in the Marine Corps, leader of Marines, combat pilot, flew Cobras, AH-1 Whiskey Super Cobra attack helicopters, and ended up deploying twice to Iraq. Since leaving the military, the one piece of advice that I would give a transitioning veteran, especially a woman, is take a little time for yourself. What do you really want? Before you just take off that uniform and go jump into the corporate job. And this is, if you can, give yourself a little bit of time because it is a transition. What do you really want out of life? And what type of career path or entrepreneurial path will help you achieve the life goals and dreams that you truly desire? I don't feel like I was at the detriment of any stereotypes, being a veteran or being a woman, in transition. I knew I'd wanted to get out for several years, and I was waiting for the sign, right? And I was walking down the hall, and a couple women saw me from an earlier session. They're like, "Oh my God, we're so inspired. We're all going for our plan A." And I was thinking, that's great. Well, I said that's great out loud, but in my mind, I was thinking, I inspired them to go for their plan A, and I'm not even going for mine. And I knew I wanted to be a professional speaker. So in that moment, I said, all right, I'm getting out. And I went around the conference telling everybody I was getting out. Now, there were Marines there, a huge contingent of corporate America, like 2,500 people. But I wouldn't recommend that exit strategy to everyone. The skills I personally needed to learn and or master, get very good at, were basic business skills. Because I was a cop before getting in the military, a Marine, a combat pilot. I didn't know anything about business, profit and loss statement, marketing, sales. I didn't know anything about all that. So it was a very, very, very sharp learning curve. To step up in leadership and do some of the things that I see these women veterans trying to do, you're absolutely going to need confidence. I was bullied as a little kid. I was a welcome mat. When I first became a police officer, I'd grown a little bit in confidence because I'd already been in the Army, the Reserves, ROTC, now I'm a police officer, I'd been through academy. So I had skill, which gave me the confidence to go out there and execute. But I still remember the first time my training officer said, okay, go over there and arrest that guy. And I was thinking, okay, I couldn't just go up and say, excuse me, could you turn around, put your arm, so I really had to fake it before I became it. Turn around, put your arms behind your back. That didn't feel like me, but I also knew I had to step up with a different command presence, right? So the main characteristic or attribute that the police department and law enforcement, and especially the Marine Corps, holding your own, male-dominated, only woman in my squadron that flew Cobras, attack helicopters, the only woman that all the men in my squadron had ever flown with, you had to be able to hold your own. So there are two chunks of encouragement and advice I would love to give to women in transition right now. And this would go whether it's military or anything, right? You're getting divorced and you're at transition there. How do we transition? Number one, create your flight plan. Where are you? Where do you want to be? The most important point here is do not think about the how. What's the real vision? What do you really want? Step two is pre-flight. As a pilot, I'm going out there, I'm pre-flighting before the flight, looking at my aircraft. What's going to help me take off, have a successful mission, and come back? So mitigating the risks, the pros and cons, because the biggest thing is going to be our fear and not doing something, right, because of the fear. It's really the fear of the unknown. So if we get all our fears out, they're not unknown anymore. Then take off. Then execute, step 4. Finally, step 5. Review, recharge, reattack. Review your successes and your failures. Recharge emotionally, physically, and intellectually. And finally, reattack. Because there are only 2 ways to succeed. That's it. Done. The first time or again. Your gutsy move. What's your gutsy move? In your gut, you know it's right, but it takes guts to do it. I've been out a little over 10 years now. I had 6 years to go to get a reserve retirement. The best thing in the world I could have done was listen to my gut and live my purpose on the planet, not someone else's plan, my plan. The gutsy move. Give yourself that permission to engage with courage, power, and grit, and make your gutsy move.
That's all for this edition of Veterans in Transition. We ask that you like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you have a story to tell, reach out to us at VetsInTransition.com. And remember, we all have a story to tell. Until next time.
We have to bring Veterans Affairs into the 21st century. And my prime directive to our folks is customer service. Not just customer service in the way that you or I know it, but customer service amongst the employees of the Department of Veterans Affairs.
You know what I mean? Just being there and kind of letting people know that it's okay to talk about mental health issues, that it's okay to talk about, you know, suicide prevention and your personal struggles.
No, but then she actually reads the vest, and she stands up very tall, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Table for 2 and 1 hero. I'm like, sweet, now he's a whole and he's better than me. That's what I wanted. One day you're just gonna find videos of me on YouTube screaming at my dog about stolen valor. You know? Just like, you take those patches off, you didn't earn them. And him just looking up at me like, you dressed me, dummy.
The best thing in the world I could have done was listen to my gut and live my purpose on the planet, not someone else's plan, my plan.